from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day, a spending bill fast tracks through Congress with a last resort to fix a grain glitch in the tax code.
That's probably the last train to leave the station for a long time.
Threats of a trade war heighten over robust tariffs on $50 billion worth of Chinese goods. And agribusiness, what signals you should watch if you're in the market to sell corn.
We don't have nearly the carry that we could have from December out to, say, March, May, or July.
And a tricky balancing act between sea mammals and spawning salmon.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. It's been a busy week in Washington as Congress rushes to finalize details in keeping the federal government funded past midnight tonight. That includes fixing a portion of the tax code that some say picked winners and losers in agriculture. It's a fix to Section 199A that's made a lot of noise since January. And finally, top legislators striking a deal to include those changes in the omnibus spending bill. Democrats were pushing back, demanding changes to the low-income housing tax credit in return, and House Speaker Paul Ryan conceded to those demands. The House passed the bill on Thursday, and Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley says if the Section 199A changes had not happened in this spending bill, it would make it tough to get a fix passed still this year.
Because that's probably the last train to leave the station for a long time. I don't know that we're going to get a farm bill passed this year. I intend to work to get one passed, but if we don't get it passed, and this was to go on beyond that period of time where private elevators were going out of business, it'd be catastrophic for a lot of businessmen, but it'd also be catastrophic for farmers that would have less places to market their grain. So it better be in this bill.
While National Grain and Feed Association supports the 199A grain glitch fix in Congress, a major critic is National Farmers Union, the group urging Congress to reject the proposal, saying it's too much in favor of corporations that already had their tax rate cut from 35% to 21%. But it's private grain buyers who say Section 199A was bad for business. Betsy Gibbon joins us now from Poet Ethanol Plant just outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana, to find out if the grain glitch was bad for business. Betsy?
I'm here now with Matt Timano. He's the general manager here of the Poet plant in Portland, Indiana. And today we're going to talk about Section 199A. Now, Matt, there's a potential fix, keyword potential here, with the Section 199A in the spending bill on Friday.
Sure.
What has Section 199A, what has that change done to your company here in this location? Has it had any type of an impact here?
It really hasn't had much of an impact at this point in time. There's a lot of producers that are waiting and seeing. There's a lot of businesses that are waiting and seeing what happens. We're confident that there's going to be a fix. That's what we've been told. So really most industries, most producers, I think, are in the wait and see category where they're going to wait for a fix that hopefully is in and hopefully going to happen soon.
Anything else our viewers should know when it comes to Section 199A and what this could potentially mean?
Sure, it's more of a wait and see. I think it's critical that it is changed, it is fixed. If it's not, it's going to create a lot of changes with the way businesses are structured. Producers would definitely want to change the way they sell their grain, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be fixed, and if it wouldn't be fixed, there'd be changes made. I think it's going to be business as usual, and I think there's a fix that will come soon.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Reporting in Portland, Indiana, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Back to you, Tyne.
Well, it's not just the Section 199A fix that applies to farmers in the spending bill. There's also funding for ag broadband in the form of a $600 million pilot project. It would give grants and loans to expand high-speed internet services in rural areas. The bill funds the newly created Office of Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation, a role Bill Northey has already been appointed. The bill also sets aside a pilot program for the 2017 Ag Risk Coverage Program to address the yield disparities between comparable counties in the states. Interest rates continue to climb higher, and it's that news that has one ag lender worried about what it could mean for loan delinquency rates for farmers. The Federal Reserve raising the benchmark lending rate by a quarter point this week. However, with the economy improving, there are signals that steeper hikes could be in store for both 2019 and 2020. New research by Farmer Mac reveals that rising interest rates can lead to increased risks for the farming sector, as rising rates puts downward pressure on farmland values. Farmer Mac warns that loan delinquency rates, which have remained low, could increase if interest rates continue to rise. That's as higher interest rates will mean farmers will have to pay more for new or variable rate credit over the next several years. Kirk Covington of Farmer Mac says that comes at a time when working capital on farms is also shrinking.
Banks are having to fund a much larger proportion of their operating needs of these farmers. So when we say, okay, interest rates go up 25 basis points or 50 basis points, that takes it in one context, but the other context is when your liquidity is that low, you're having to borrow more money from the bank. So in absolute dollars, not only is it an interest rate hike, but the total cost for your farming operation is much larger than it would have been even 3 or 4 years ago. So I encourage farmers to think of it in terms of absolute dollars because they're having to borrow more money, and lenders are looking at it from the same perspective.
Now, Farmer Mac says wheat and livestock operations may have the most difficult time repaying loans. Now to the tariff battle, and there are 2 fronts to update you on. As promised, the Trump administration is ready to levy tariffs and other trade restrictions on China to the tune of $50 billion. The move is based on accusations that China knowingly stole American intellectual property. The U.S. Trade Representative will prepare a list of proposed tariffs for public comment within 2 weeks, but already there are 1,300 product lines that are targeted. Meanwhile, the trade representative told senators that some key trading partners will receive an exemption on the steel and aluminum tariffs that went into effect today.
We have the 2 NAFTA countries, which we know where they are. We have Europe, we have Australia, we have Argentina, we have Brazil. Who am I forgetting? Oh, and obviously Korea, where we're negotiating the course.
Those metal tariffs are separate from IP tariffs announced against China. Well, Kansas saw some rain this week, but Colorado grew even drier. Mike Hoffman takes a look at some drought spots on today's Crop Comments. Mike?
Good morning, Tyne. The new drought monitor map shows drought expanding a bit in Texas. A quarter of the state is now in severe or extreme drought. That's 3 points worse than last week. Cotton and corn growers in the Rio Grande Valley may begin to irrigate earlier than normal due to the abnormally dry conditions in that area. And drought intensifying in Colorado. 75% of the state is now covered by the moderate, severe, or extreme categories. Taking a look at the wind speed forecast, is going to be windy in the plains today, starting off in the northern plains, ending up throughout the plains and most of the west. A couple of storm systems really causing a lot of wind through those areas. As we head into the day tomorrow, then those windy areas shift into the Mississippi Valley for the morning hours. That'll continue to expand and the west becomes windy once again. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Still to come, the spreads in the corn market aren't that appealing, but what does that mean for those needing to sell corn? Joe Vaklovic joins us from the agribusiness desk. Agronomist Ken Ferry will be here as we talk about soy after corn planting this spring, plus a frustrating balancing act between California sea lions and Oregon salmon, where wildlife managers must deal with a rebounding population of one against a dwindling population of another.
AgDay, brought to you by Liberty Herbicide, the simply better solution for superior weed control and a stronger yield.
Here now with Joe Vaklovic of Standard Grain. Joe, there's a lot more positive talk about corn lately. We've seen some acreage estimates. We don't know if we'll see corn above 90 million acres. There's some estimates that saying will be 2 million acres, possibly below that. At the end of the day, though, when you look at December corn futures, what direction do you think we're heading?
I don't know what direction we're headed, but I'll tell you one thing that's kind of interesting is that you know, we're talking about making forward sales here. December corn futures are above $4, which is close to a profitable level for some farmers, if not totally profitable for some other farmers. The carry in the corn market in these new crop contracts is kind of interesting. You know, a lot of farmers are going to watch the relationship between, say, December 18 and July of 19, because everyone's got bins, everyone's going to keep some corn in storage. and they want to know which contract should I be selling, which one should I be pricing. As of right now, we don't have nearly the carry that we could have from December out to say March, May, or July. Some of that carry's come out of the market recently. So if you're going to make forward sales, you want to be aware of that spread action. And I think that you probably want to stick with the December futures with the idea that you can sell the December, and at some point, if you get a normal type growing season, the spreads probably widen out. You probably get that spread from December out to say July 19 out to 25 or 30 cents. That would be perfectly normal. If that doesn't happen, you've probably got a situation where we have a crop issue. And that means you're going to end up with a December board that's much, much higher, and you'll be able to sell additional bushels at much better prices. But in either case, I think if you're going to make the sales here, you go with the December with the idea that the spreads widen out and you can ultimately pick up that carry.
But do you think producers have sold enough? Have we forward contracted enough, or do you want to see producers out there forward contract more?
It depends. Everybody's different. You know, every farm is its own business. Everybody's in a different financial situation. Some farmers can afford to take the risk or have the luxury of taking the risk of pricing a minimal amount of bushels right now and waiting and seeing if they hit a $4.50, $5 corn market.
Right.
Other producers don't have that luxury and they've got to be more aggressive. So it really depends on where you stand as a business, how much money you got in the bank, what kind of liquidity you have. All of those things come into consideration here.
All right, thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be back with more Ag Day.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438. Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. Ag Day weather, brought to you by Resicor Corn Herbicide, a uniquely powerful formulation, extraordinary power over weeds.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Time now to check weather with our meteorologist, Mike Hoffman. Mike, looking at this drought monitor map, there are some improvements, but the areas that are dry just get drier.
And that sometimes happens. It's like the domino effect.
Right.
You can't get any moisture when the ground's already dry. So that's the problem in the panhandle of Texas and other areas around there. But there have been other areas that have improved over the last month and a half, and a lot of that's the southern central Mississippi Valley into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. Still some dryness in the southeast, and also Four Corner region still looking pretty bad, and there's remnants up across the Dakotas into eastern Montana. But going back a month, you can see how there was a little bit more through the central Mississippi Valley and parts of the southeast, as well as the northern plains. As we go week by week over the last 4 weeks, and you can see how it's just gotten a little bit worse right there through the Texas, Oklahoma panhandles and southwestern Kansas, and it's continued to stay very dry throughout the Four Corner region. Now, taking a look at the weather map today, you can see another system diving into the northern plains. Unfortunately, most of this moisture going to go north of those really severe drought areas. Putting the maps into motion, you can see how this system is diving southeastward. That means an expanding area of rain turning to snow, at least on the northern fringes. Will be spreading southeastward throughout parts of Missouri, Illinois, much of Iowa. Next system kind of diving down the west coast first, and then it will come eastward eventually, but you're going to see more moisture in the far western parts of the country. Heading through tomorrow morning, you can see that snow from the southern Appalachians through central Indiana, northeastern Iowa, all the way back into Minnesota. South of there, it's mainly rain, and heading through the day tomorrow, that continues to dive toward the southeast. And late in the day, a lot of this is going to be rain. There will still be some pockets of wet snow here and there. Next system, rain and mountain snows continuing to develop once again out west. Past 24 hours, we've seen most of the moisture out west. Adding in the next 36, we're going to add all of that across the plain states into the central Mississippi Valley and into the southeast with that system diving through those areas. Snowfall, it's all been out west in the higher elevations except for the remnants of the system in eastern Maine. Adding in the next 36 hours, then we're going to see that strip of heavy wet snow diving southward from Iowa all the way down into western North Carolina. Taking a look at temperatures this afternoon, very warm in the southern plains. Elsewhere, it's kind of typical for this time of the year, and that's going to be the case. You can see lows tonight, 60s and 70s in Texas, and back into the 70s to near 80 for tomorrow afternoon. And then you can take a look at the jet stream. Trough in the west and the east, ridge through the middle of the country. We do see some changes coming, and our models continue to kind of show a cutoff into the southwest and a little bit of a different looking pattern by later next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, we'll head to Tucumcari, New Mexico. Partly sunny, breezy, and warm, high of 86 degrees. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, cloudy, an afternoon shower likely, high around 50. And Waycross, Georgia, mixture of sunshine and clouds, and nice, high of 70.
Well, we're off to a Farm Journal College next with some advice on planting soybeans after corn. And sea lions swim outside their comfort zone and encroach on important salmon spawning beds. See how the government is addressing that problem in the Pacific Northwest. Well, does your planting rotation have you putting in soybeans this spring? A lot of early estimates says that's the case for many of you. Well, in this week's Farm Journal College course, agronomist Ken Ferry explains some of the finer points of planting soy after corn.
Now, Ken, we're standing out here in a field being planted to soybeans after having been corn for quite a while. Let's talk about weed management and how we need to really think about managing a field after we're changing up a rotation.
Yeah, you know, if you stay in one rotation too long and use one set of chemistry too long, you'll select for whatever the weakest part of that management program is. So whether it would be things like, you know, cane or foxtail or water hemp or Palmer amaranth, that type of thing. And sometimes, especially in a Roundup program, we're using Roundup as your main chemistry, and when you get resistance to it, you may have to change the chemistry to get the weed under control. And you may have to change the crop, so a situation where guys may go into corn on corn so they can use other chemistry to manage something that has Roundup and ALS resistance, so they can use growth regulators and things like that. So again, it's not uncommon to have to change your rotation so you can change your chemistry completely to manage it. The big thing would be, once you get that certain weed under control, is from then on pay attention to the chemistry you're using. A lot of times farmers just use the same thing they did last year because it worked really well for them the last 2 or 3 years. And when they start stacking multiple years of the same chemistry up, then they're always going to sort or find the weakest link of it, and then that's going to be the weed that they have to manage in the future. So by mixing it up more often with different chemistry, different modes of action, one, they may not have to change their crop rotation just to manage a weed. But in some cases, especially with the Palmer amaranth, guys have had to change their rotation so they could manage that weed or get it under control.
And it's pretty important to stay ahead of that, right?
Yeah, and it's always easier to fix the problem when it's small and when you get a full-blown problem out there. If you've got a good herbicide program out there, and you've got multiple modes of action against different weeds, and you see a few stray weeds out in there, today it's worth it to go out there and actually get them, even if you have to hand harvest them, because most likely if they've come through all your chemistry, what you're looking at are resistant weeds that are still out there in the field.
Okay, so it takes a little effort, a little management to take care of these problems, but worth it in the end.
And a little bit of time scouting to see exactly what weeds you have, and knowing what herbicide it came through can keep you from coming back with the same problem again next year, but a lot bigger.
All right, thanks, Ken.
Still to come, a challenge to protect salmon from extinction, but that move could also put another mammal at risk.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
In the Pacific Northwest, Chinook salmon and steelhead face a growing challenge. It's not humans and their fishing rods this time. It's hungry sea lions. California sea lions are traveling all the way up the Columbia and Willamette rivers in Oregon to snack on salmon and steelhead. In some cases, the sea lions have been found 100 miles inland. Government agencies have started snaring the sea lions to relocating them back to the Pacific. If not, entire fish populations could be lost.
You see so many of these fish that are killed, and there's some days I see them killed and they're not even eating the fish, they're just letting them float.
We're estimating that there's nearly a 90% probability that at least one of the populations in the Willamette could go extinct if predation continues unchecked. That's of all the adults that are returning to the falls there, a quarter of them are getting eaten.
At one time, sea lions were extensively hunted for their fur, but they've made a comeback. Sea lions are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, but the federal government has made special exceptions to help save the fish. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great weekend in Farm Country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest-lasting heavy-duty pickups.